we're back. David Vickery, part 2. Since we haven't had Tom Cruise on the podcast, I'm going to say most handsome guest ever. I'm just going to put that out there.
I think we even talk about that this week with him. Yes, he's very handsome, and he wears that mustache well, which I think, again, we'll just post the picture again in our show notes because the mustache is so Cavill-like and great.
Yeah.
That you can look in our show notes and check out this picture. You can see why we were man crushing so hard on this guy.
Yeah. But he's not an actor. He is the visual effects supervisor for Rogue Nation. And we get into more of that stuff here. We talk about the A400. You know what? I don't want to ruin it, Charles.
No.
I don't want to ruin it. But do you have anything to say before we get into it?
I don't actually. I think you should just get into your favorite part of the show right now.
This episode is brought to you by John B., who's been with us forever. We love him, and he's great. And he just suggested one of the Patreon episodes we're going to record next week. So please think about that, too, joining our Patreon. I also want to thank Elvis Ripley, who loves Rogue Nation, and it's had a huge impact on him and his career. And then for Jeremy Dillon, we're doing something different, and we are going to plug one of the artists that he manages. Her name is Imogen Clark, and she has a single called Enemy that he's encouraging us all to check out, and it's on SoundCloud, and I'm sure on Spotify and Apple Music and everywhere you listen to music. And her favorite Mission Impossible movie is Rogue Nation, so this is just perfect. And he says that he doesn't have her hair rankings, but she's kind of been into Ghost Protocol recently, so I'm very into that too.
Yeah. And it's nice that we're diving into Rogue Nation a little bit more recently, and I think we even have another Rogue Nation. Someone else who worked on Rogue Nation and another mission that we know that'll be in a few weeks, I think, or maybe a month or so down the line here.
There we go.
But we've it's just great. It's great to talk to people from all the different movies, and we love talking to David. So I think you'll enjoy part 2.
That's right, and we'll be back afterwards to wrap things up. We're obsessed with the ending of this movie and the planned endings of this movie. Did you work on any abandoned endings that were proposed and not shot?
Well, the plane was the end originally, wasn't it? The Airbus was going to be the ending at one point, and but it kept chopping and changing around all over the place. And they're, for such beautiful story arcs, they seem incredibly modular as films. I don't know. So the Airbus obviously came to the beginning, but I do remember being on day 107 of the shoot, and the call sheet would say day 107 of 100, and we're like, whoa, we've gone over a little bit here, and we hadn't shot the third act, and everyone's like, how are we going to shoot the third act? We're already over, we've got no time, there's no story. And then I remember at one point Chris and Tom talking to me and saying, we get him in a box and he gets trapped in this box, and then Tom said, and I'm going to punch it over. And the crazy thing is you go, how do you punch a 8 foot tall 6 foot by 6 foot perspex box? How do you punch it over? That sounds mad. And then you just have to sort of go with it, because he's not crazy. He thought things through. He has a logic and he has a vision for how things can work. And in the end, it totally works. They trap him in that box, and there's that beautiful scene with all the reflections playing against each other's faces whilst you're inside and outside of the box. And Tom pushes the box over, and it totally works. And I remember Chris, we watched the first cuts of that with Eddie and Chris, and they had the music, this temporary soundtrack that was playing in the edit at that point was, I think it's called the Map Room from Indiana Jones. It's when Harrison Ford plants the staff and the sunlight shines through it, and the Map Room is such an amazing piece of music by John Williams. I was like, Chris, what have you done to Joe? How is Joe Kramer going to replace this piece of music? And he said, yeah, I know. I just wanted to lay down a gauntlet at him and say, Joe, you got to make a piece of music that's better than this. Then I remember listening to the final piece and thinking, wow, well done, because it's an amazing theme at the end.
Yeah.
It really brings it all together. And that's what Chris was like for me, it was you'd come to him as a soup. All I want to do is just, work with a director to help them create their vision. And you'd come to him with a great idea, like, Chris, I've had this great idea. You could do this and this. And he's like, great. And he's like a football coach with a ball, and he throws it down the far end of the pitch, and everyone runs off and grabs it and brings it back and go, here you are. And he picks it up and he just throws it back up the other end of the pitch again. And he's just trying to make you get the best. And he did that to me for the mask shots. And he asked me to come up with an idea for some mask shots. Specifically, in this instance, it was when Benji was impersonating the businessman. And he said, okay, pitch me some ideas. So we went out and we got a phone, and I got a few people and we shot some ideas. And one of them's like wiping behind somebody's back, and another one's, using somebody's hand to sort of hide the reveal as they wipe their hand over their face. He was like, yeah, these are all great, but I want you to do it without any visual effects at all. No visual effects. It has to be 100% in camera. And I just, that's kind of a kick. Like, how are you going to do that? And I'm the visual effects supervisor, so it's doing myself out of a job here. So it was Paul Inglis and I sat down, and Paul said, what about a mirror? I was like, go on, carry on. So we're not actually going to do a mirror, but I build a mirrored set. So that's where that idea came from, for the idea of building this completely duplicate mirrored set with actually just a hole in the wall, and standing Tom on one side so you can see his face, and Ilsa on the other side, and Simon on one, and the businessman on the other. And that's a pleasure when you can do stuff like that fools you, that's creative and challenging, and it's engaging to film. And it feels like you get a real sense of achievement when you make stuff like that in a film. I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, that's an amazing moment. I think we read that McQuarrie was even confused on set. He was talking to the wrong Tom when he was like trying to get him to adjust his body placement or something like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was there. I was there when that happened. I stood next to him on the director's monitor, and he's directing the wrong Tom. And he's like, well, it must be working then. It was hard for him to say this shot doesn't work at that point when he'd fooled himself on set.
Yeah.
So
I wanted to go back to talking about some invisible VFX. We heard that so in the A400 sequence, in ended up being the opening scene, the runway where they were shooting that, there was nothing there. Is that correct? Like all those hangers in the background were all added afterwards. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. So I think it was Wittering that we filmed it at, if I remember correctly. It's quite a while ago now. But yeah, all of the grass domed hangers were digital elements that we built in 3D and then added to the shots afterwards. And it's just about like having a soft touch. Like, let's try and get as much of this as we can in camera on the day, and then augment, like support the story, support the pictures with visual effects, rather than trying to own them or take them over. Those sort of supporting visual effects is what Mission Impossible does really well. Trying to create something that's you're touching as little as you can, but still getting the pictures that the director wants.
Right.
And then the stunt itself was obviously another really impossible thing that they did. And rigging that camera, I think rigging the camera was a trick in itself, because they couldn't actually rig to anything on the exterior of the plane. They had to rig in through the windows and the doors to aluminium truss on the inside of the plane. And then the camera's outside with a wind deflector across the front of it. And Tom was harnessed on and wired in place. I remember walking around Leavesden during prep for the movie and seeing a like special effects person stood in front of a wind trumpet with, clearly he had like scleral lenses and goggles on, and he was like testing how hard it was to stand in front of like 150 mile an hour wind, and he was like 5 feet away from this massive wind trumpet, wind just going into his face. It's like, what is going on? And they're just doing like prep safety tests, like, yeah, it feels really bad, I can tell you, it's fast, that wind is strong.
Yeah, no shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, they had those special contact lens made up for him, right? The really thick, huge contact lenses that cover his whole eye or something.
Yeah, he had like rigid full eye scleral lenses in to just save him in the case of anything hitting him, because who knows, like a stone caught him at one point in one of the takes.
Yeah.
And then what was crazy is that I really thought that was a one take wonder. Like you do that once, yeah, you go up on the side of a plane once. And he did it once, and it came back up, and it touched down, and everyone was like, "Yay, we get Tom off the plane now. That was great. Well done, everyone." And he just went straight back up again and did it again. And again, just this sort of the amazing dedication that he has to getting it right.
Yeah.
Definitely a perfectionist.
Yeah. The motorcycle chase. I don't know if I'm sure this has happened before, but this is the first time I was ever aware of a car chase where more cars were added on the highway.
Matrix.
So the old Matrix movie, maybe too. I don't know if I was that aware or in tune with that movie at the times to know that, but I remember hearing about that. So can you talk about what that was? How many cars were real and how many had to be added? And
I'd say like half of the cars were real, and maybe half of them were digital. And again, the idea is that you can allow Tom and the other stunt performers to do it, to be on a bike, and actually Tom hasn't got a helmet on as well, which is, it makes it even more precarious for him or dangerous for him. So they can then move and drive carefully at speed and weave through traffic. And there's always instances, even if you had all the traffic in the world, you've got a camera vehicle as well, yeah, that has to be able to get down the road and weave in through the traffic as well. So a bike's going to fit through a very narrow space, but the pursuit vehicle, which is a 4x4, it's like a Porsche Cayenne with a huge 20-foot crane arm on the top of it, that's not going through the narrow gaps. So in many ways, it's there to help the camera get through the space as it is the stunt performers. And then in post, you can add those vehicles in and time them perfectly to really buzz the lens as close as possible to get that sense of speed and proximity. So that was great. But then Dom Tui built a really amazing rig to allow us to get the close-up shots of Tom. And he's on essentially the bike is being towed on the back of what we call a biscuit rig. And that's a low-profile camera platform, which allows us, we had two cameras mounted on it, one on a crane arm and one fixed to the base. And then there was a pole arm or a swing arm off the back of the vehicle that the bike was attached to. So Tom could then ride at speed on the bike, and he could drive that bike and weave left and right on it. But the camera could stay at a fixed distance relative to him in a safe way. And that was a really great way to get dynamic shots of Tom and Rebecca on the bike without having to worry about getting the camera close, because that could be very dangerous, not being able to control a camera at distance. But they're still there on location and actually riding. You don't have to do it on a green screen.
Right. And that biscuit rig is going how fast? Very fast, I assume.
As fast as they can, I suppose. Again, it's like they'll go as fast as they can to get the shots. I've worked with that biscuit rig a number of times, and I never realized, I've just done it on Jurassic, I never realized it was made for Seabiscuit. And that's why it's called the biscuit rig.
Yeah, someone else just told us that recently.
Oh, really?
It was created for Seabiscuit. Who are we talking to that said that, Drew? I can't remember now.
I don't know, but that Seabiscuit, he still inspires us all to this day with his pluck.
He's a very inspirational horse.
Ingenuity, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was the biscuit rig because it's thin and flat, but no, that sounds stupid now.
In America, it's the cookie rig. In England, it's the biscuit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else from Rogue Nation that we should? I have a quick question about another movie I wanted to ask, but
I wanted to. Was the parachute animated at the very end of the cold open when he's about to go out that cargo door?
Oh, what, on the plane?
Yeah.
Well, we shot an element of that. That was amazing.
Really?
On the stage. Again, Dom and his team, that's the best thing about special effects, is if you say, can you give this a go, they'll give it a go. And I remember being on the stage and they actually had enough of these huge Ritter fans and a parachute that exploded out the back of a rig, and they filled it with enough air to get it up.
Wow.
That's impressive, isn't it?
I think I've seen a picture from them shooting that on a soundstage. Is that right? It wasn't. Yeah.
So that's an impressive thing, isn't it?
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Go ahead, Charles. You can do your Chris. This is the Chris Farley show. part of the episode where we just talk about your other things
What?
and how much we love them.
Yeah, I mean, you've worked on so many great movies. I had a question about. Okay, I want to ask about this is my question about The Dark Knight. So Chris Nolan is always Mr. Practical and never does any visual effects. Tell us some visual effects in The Dark Knight that people don't realize was achieved with visual effects.
Oh God, you go deep and back a long way very quickly, don't you? That's a great question, though. Well, I can tell you the test that we did at Double Negative that helped us win the pitch was a really great test. So my involvement in the film was I was doing his cape at the time. So I was in charge of Batman's cape, which is quite a fun thing to do, yeah?
Yeah, that's awesome.
And so we put together a small team very early on in pre-production to do a test to show Chris Nolan that we could do digital Batman or digital Batman. And they'd filmed a plate of Batman dropping down a stairwell and landing on the deck, and his cape billows and falls around him, and he stands up and he walks off. So we had this plate, and our goal was to try to match it, to make an exact replica of a digital version of Batman. Because one of the challenges was actually the cape in many ways, is that it's very difficult to control a practical cape to get it to do the right thing. And you can do the perfect stunt and the cape ruins the take. So we thought maybe it's just a good pitch for a digital cape rather than necessarily a whole digital Batman. And we did this test, we spent weeks doing it and put these two side by side. And this is a bit of a hiding to nothing as well, yeah, because it's a 50-50. Guess which is the real one, guess which is the CG one. And Chris picked the right one. He picked the CG one, but not quickly. And I don't think with any degree of certainty. So I think if you'd have said, okay, would you put £1,000 on it and then make the choice, I'm sure he would have taken a lot longer to make his decision. But that was what helped us win that pitch.
Yeah.
And it was a great thing to work on. I haven't got anything for you in terms of I'd have to watch the film. You should have prepped me on that question.
Oh, sorry. Well, I mean, was there some of the cape business? Was that I mean, there's him gliding through, what is it, Hong Kong or whatever, and there's different.
And through the Narrows.
Yeah.
So there's shot where he jumps off in the Narrows, where he jumps off and the cape like pops out into the bat wing instead of the bat cape. That was CG cape that I did and digital Batman. Is that Batman Begins? That's in Batman Begins. Yeah. It's in Begins. Actually, all of what I'm talking about Batman Begins, not Dark Knight.
Oh, okay. But you did work on Dark Knight as well, right?
I did, yeah. I was CG supervisor on the Dark Knight.
So if you're CG supervisor, you're doing some CG, right?
Doing some CG, yeah.
Listen. Old Sourpuss is not going to listen to this podcast.
Yeah, you can out Christopher Nolan right now. Don't worry. He's not going to listen.
And I'll never work in this industry again. That's it. I've already been struck off.
Children of Men is one of my favorite movies. I adore that movie.
Yeah.
You were CG supervisor on that movie as well at Double Negative.
Yep.
What was some of the work? And I know they had some, speaking of amazing oneers that are seamless. I know that some of those are stitched, but they're done so well. Was that some of the work you were doing, or what was some of the work on Children of Men?
Yeah, that was a lot of the work I was doing, actually. And so the stuff in that movie that I'm most proud of is that multipler, the scene in the Fiat multipler where they're, I think they're driving up a country lane and they get attacked by a bunch of people who run out of the forest.
Yes, yeah.
And that was shot with a rig called the Doggy Cam. And so there's a Fiat multipler on a biscuit rig, come to think of it, being driven by somebody who's like on a pod to one side of the vehicle. And then on top of the vehicle is a massive white tent, inside of which is the Alfonso and Chivo with a camera rig and a camera operator. And the camera is kind of dropped in through the roof of the car. And it's on two sets of parallel rails. So it can move forwards and backwards and left and right, anywhere, like telescoping down inside the vehicle. And it can rotate around 360 degrees. So they can look in any direction inside the car. But to do that, they had to cut the whole of the roof off the vehicle. And so what you see in the shot, the work that we had to do is, as well as stitching a couple of takes together, is actually replacing the entire of the inside of the roof of the car. And then there's the Molotov cocktail and the bike rider that they hit halfway through it. But the hardest bit for us was the ping pong ball.
I was going to ask.
That was so hard because I can't remember who starts with the ball in their mouth the first time. I think it's
Julianne
Clive
Moore.
Owen. Oh, it's Julianne Moore.
I think she spit it at Clive Owen. I don't know. They're spitting the ping pong ball back and forth at each other. For those who don't remember.
Yeah, so that's everyone's like, oh yeah, we'll just practice that a few times and we'll do it. Yeah, it's like, well, in the whole thing with the big long take, do you really want to get all the way through that take and then have them miss on the third catch? So I think that Julianne just goes whoop and spits it out and it like bounces off his face, but he pretends to catch it and then he mimes pretending to spit it back and she pretends to catch it.
So the first one is real. The first one is the real ball.
The real ball.
Until he doesn't catch it. So we take the real ball and we paint it out midway through the air and deflect its trajectory subtly. So there's a CG ball, deflected trajectory to get into Clive's mouth. But then, I mean, we can all try it now on the podcast. Pretend you've got a ping pong ball in your mouth because you can guarantee there's like a million different face shapes coming through right now. With everybody at home, and your mouth is not in the right shape. So you have to then digitally reproject the whole of Clive's lips and his mouth and lower jaw to fit perfectly round and stay perfectly glued to a ping pong ball. Then he has to spit it back and Julianne has to catch it. And you have to do exactly the same thing to her. And it just took an age just getting their lips stabilized to stick perfectly to the ball. It's a cool gag. Wow.
But it was seamless and incredibly difficult. Yeah.
Wow. Charles, do you have any more fanboy questions? Or
No, I'm fine. Thank you, Drew. He didn't work on Tomorrowland, so you don't.
I don't have any Tomorrowland or Color of Night. You did not work on
Color
of Night.
These are ones that Drew always asks about.
Yeah. You worked on Jupiter Ascending, but maybe we'll just skate by that one.
Oh, the Wachowskis are so amazing, though.
I love that movie, but I know that people are a little. Did you work on the Chicago bit?
I did. That was exactly. I went out to Chicago for 10 weeks to do the chase with, and I can't remember the character's name.
Channing Tatum's wolf guy.
That
Kane something.
They had something snappier than that, I think, in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Channing Tatum's wolf guy is what we'll call him. Is it Kane Wise? Is that his name?
Kane Wise. There you go. Oh, good Googling. Yeah, no, we worked on that whole sequence there. And then a lot of the stuff on the Abrasics refinery, Eddie Redmayne's refinery in Jupiter. So that was great fun. But the Wachowskis are very nice people. Really nice people.
Yes, they are. I want them back together and doing something crazy.
I think they got to the end of Jupiter and they're like, we're never making another movie ever again. And I think they say that Dan Glass, the supervisor, said they say that every time.
Well, we have some pretty important questions to ask you, Charles. Is this the time to do it?
Yeah, I guess, I don't have any specific. I wanted to ask something about dinosaurs because you're in dinosaur world now, but I don't know. You probably can't talk about the new Jurassic World. I know you did Fallen Kingdom as well.
Fallen Kingdom rules. I was just watching it on FX the other night. Wrong aspect ratio, commercials, still great, I gotta say.
Oh, what aspect ratio did you get it in then? Not 240.
It was
probably 178 on TV.
178, yeah.
Oh, you lost all the sides.
Yeah,
I know. He directed the shit out of that movie, I gotta say.
Diana's amazing.
The visuals are really, really. I mean, just that opening sequence in the rain. I mean, it's just so beautiful. It's awesome.
Who doesn't want to do a sequence with a T-Rex in a lightning storm and a helicopter? Eh? Like that's pretty amazing.
Do you get to top it in this new one?
Yeah.
Okay.
You've seen. We got this new one is amazing.
Okay.
There's some amazing stuff I'm really proud of in this new film. I'm interested to see what you think of it. I mean, feathers, come on.
Okay. Can you say what you're working on now or no?
I'm actually in between projects at the moment. So that's like an advert, yeah? So if anybody needs a visual effects supervisor.
John Knoll, give this guy some work to do.
Oh, don't say that. John will have loads of work for me if you're not careful. He's the boss. But as in between projects, I work as the acting creative director in the London studio. So there's lots of, there are loads of projects going through the studio at the moment.
Oh, yeah. Are there any of them, maybe, do any of them rhyme with Schmission, Schmish Possible?
Maybe. maybe two of them do.
Yeah. Okay, here's a question. Have you seen any footage of a submarine from these new ones?
No.
Okay. I think I believe him.
All right.
We saw there was a report in a trade one of the trades, I don't know, Variety or Hollywood Reporter, saying that there's a submarine involved in one of the Mission movies coming up. But he's got his poker face on.
Poker face. You know what? I genuinely haven't. And one of the things about any visual effects facility is they tend to keep all those separate projects very locked down, so that it's only the crews that are working on the shots that see what's going on. So
right,
for good reason.
I would just be like stumbling into other buildings, like, oh, the bathroom's backed up in the other building, gotta check it out. Oh, what you working on, mate?
Jeez.
That would be me.
Is that what I sound like?
Oh, look, a submarine.
Oh, there's a submarine, god blimey. Gotta check that one out, do I?
I love that we're all slightly Dick Van Dyke in Mary Poppins.
Yes.
We make Dick Van Dyke look
he's
sound
my North
good,
Star.
actually. Sorry, apologies.
Yeah.
That's okay.
David, we have some important follow-up questions. First of all, I'm assuming you've seen all the Mission Impossible movies.
I have. Not necessarily very recently, but I have seen them all.
Do you want to rank them?
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, I can't remember all of their names.
Well, you could say 1 through 6.
My favorite is Fallout. I thought that was fantastic. I loved it, and I loved the visuals. I thought they did an amazing job. And you know what? It's a pretty amazing franchise that's managing to get better and better and better. You may not agree with me, but I think it is the only franchise that I can think of that's just got better and better and better and better. And since kind of Ghost Protocol, that they just keep getting better and better and better.
Yeah.
I think it's an amazing. It's hard to objectively judge something that you worked on, that you know everything about. Yes. And when you're watching the scenes, you're like, I can feel where I was standing relative to the frame. It's like, I know I was just behind here and off to the left. And that makes it really difficult, even with 5 years, 6 years of separation, to really be honest about how I feel about Rogue Nation. Because I think it's a piece of work that I'm very proud of.
Right.
But Fallout, I just thought was amazing. It's so nice to go in and see something fresh without any expectation of what you're going to see.
All right, keep going.
I have to remember all the names.
There were 6 movies.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so I'm doing them backwards. I suppose what I'm saying is 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay.
You honestly think 2 is better than the first one?
I think I've seen them too long ago. You're putting me on the spot. Like, I need to listen to a lot more podcasts to work out.
Okay, here, I'll boil down the next question, because you are objectively one of our most handsome guests. Charles, would you say that?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Is this just the moustache?
It's the mustache.
Yeah, you've put us in a trance with this mustache.
See, I told you I got a lot of attention.
Are you a long hair Tom Cruise guy? Are you a short hair Tom Cruise guy? He's kind of worn his hair in all different
short.
Okay.
Can you rank? Can you give us your favorites? I guess maybe you don't remember the movies well enough.
Favorite Tom Cruise hairstyles? Top Gun wins all day long.
Oh wow. We like to keep the rankings within just Mission Impossible, but I know that you're not as up to speed on all of them. It's been a while.
No, I mean, I sort of feel like I'm playing in someone else's playground right now. You guys know so much about Mission Impossible, and you're like,
we know too much.
We bother people with these questions.
We know too much about Tom Cruise's haircuts.
You got to do Top Gun. I went to a fancy dress party with my good wife 18 months ago, and we went as Maverick and Goose. This is so off topic now, but it's fine. And I had to go as Goose. I mean, A, because I had a moustache, and B, because my wife is much shorter than me. But I really wanted to go as Maverick, and it wasn't fair.
Wow.
It was the moustache that did it.
You didn't work on the new one, did you?
No. When's that out? That's not long now, is it?
No, May 27th.
I think that's going to blow our minds away.
Yeah, we saw that first act at CinemaCon, or the first 15 minutes, and I think it was probably the best movie we saw last year, and it was 15 minutes of footage. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, David, thank you so much for accepting this mission. You've been an amazing guest. Please come back whenever you want. If you want to talk about dinosaurs in a few months, once everybody has seen it, we can all talk about it then. But yeah, thank you so much. This has been such a great chat.
Hey, it's been a pleasure. Really, thanks for making it fun and easy. And except for the ranking question, which I failed completely.
Yeah, listen, if you want, here's what we'll say. If you want to rewatch them, send us your ranking via email. We will make a correction on the show and give your full details.
Yeah, you're between projects now. You got plenty of time.
You're giving me homework. What's going on here?
Think about us who have watched these movies 80 times each now at this point. Yeah. I mean, it's good, fun homework, right?
Yeah, it's true.
Could have
It's a blast. Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah, thank you so much, and we'll talk soon, David. And we're back, David Vickery, part 2. If I said I'm going to miss him, is that weird?
No, I mean, I would say about that about all our guests too, not just David.
That's true.
True. I think it's okay to say that. We've had so many amazing people that we've talked to on the show, and David is included in that list. So
yeah,
no, I think that there's no shame in saying that.
Anyway, he's a handsome guy, and we love his mustache. That's all I need to say about that. But as I teased at the beginning, he talks a lot about the A400 and how that came to be, and every little bit we learn about it just makes that stunt more impressive, I think.
Yes. And yeah, it was just so much great stuff that he talked about this week, and the amazing work that he did on Rogue Nation. I mean, it is really like invisible. I think you talked about how Double Negative their specialty was kind of invisible effects, and it's like,
right.
I think people don't ever think about the visual effects in Rogue Nation, and that's a huge compliment.
Yes.
And so yeah, but it was cool to hear about the temp music. We'd never heard this before, but the temp music for the end of Rogue Nation was the cue from Raiders of the Lost Ark.
That's right.
Which was really cool to hear about, and to hear him say like, "Oh God, like McHugh really gave Joe Kramer a tough road to try to match that cue." But then that cue at the end of the movie, I think it's called Meet the IMF, right? That cue is fucking awesome.
Yeah, and
you can tell like, oh yeah, that makes sense that they would temp it with that map room cue in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah, Kramer delivered.
It was also cool to hear about the origins of the mask gag done in camera on the mirrored set, and it was interesting hearing about the digital cars on the highway and the motorcycle chase. I had totally forgotten about The Matrix Reloaded, which you brought up. And, were there other movies before Rogue Nation that did that other than Matrix Reloaded? Because I can't really think of any. I'm sure there were some in the Final Destination 2 highway pileup.
Right. You know what? I'm sure it happens more than we imagine. Like, I think that the reason why this one is a little bit more obvious is that they're so close to the camera. And obviously in Matrix Reloaded, they're going, underneath cars and stuff like that. And yeah. So I'm sure there's like, not to plug anything that I've written, but I recently talked to the Batman visual effects supervisor on the Wrap, and basically the entire all the cars in that highway chase were basically replaced later on, but you can't tell because it's so invisible. So I'm sure there are things like that where we just don't see it.
I'm sure some of the Fast and the Furious movies probably do it all the time as well. So yeah, I'm just, but yeah, I think it's just that there aren't a lot of car chases that really are that mind-blowing as they are in Rogue Nation and Matrix Reloaded. So I think that's why I'm not really thinking of those other ones. What was a good movie for car chases was Need for Speed. That movie had some good car chases as well. I don't know if they had any. Anyway, I'm just rambling now. Let's see. I loved hearing about Children of Men and Nolan's Batman movies. That was cool to hear him talk about that stuff. And also we asked him about the submarine in Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1, and he says he doesn't know anything about that. But now that we've seen the trailer at CinemaCon and there is a submarine, he had quite a poker face on.
Yeah. Well, in his defense, he did say that he's only sort of glimpsed things. He's not on it. He was finishing up work on Jurassic Park when we talked to him, Jurassic World Dominion. So I think that
he could have been telling the truth.
Yes,
maybe
he hadn't seen a submarine yet. That doesn't mean that ILM was not working on a submarine. So that's what I will say. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
All right, well, I should give my shout-outs. I'd like to give a special thank you to Jacob Ballard and Robbie J. Martin. Thank you, Jacob and Robbie, for making this episode possible. I also want to credit our editor and mixer, Luke Burson, who always does a great job for us, and Kevin Blumenfeld, who provides us with our legally dissimilar music. Legally dissimilar-ish. Yeah,
Ish.
Yeah. It's borderline. We'll see. Kevin's still going through the courts with that issue, so we'll see how that shakes out for Kevin. But I also want to encourage everyone to sign up for our Patreon at patreon.com/lightthefuse. We do bonus content every week, and we also have higher tier levels as well. We have a level that we have a group of people who join us every month for a Zoom chat, and we all talk about Mission Impossible and movies and things, and it's a really awesome group of people, and Mission Impossible fans and just film fans in general, and it's really a great time, and you should join. And every dollar counts. It all helps us. So also, if you just want to buy a shirt or a magnet or something from our TeePublic store, that is linked from our website, lightthefusepodcast.com. In the merch section, you will find it. And also on the website, you can go to the episode guide and check out all our show notes for every episode. You can see all the kind of great visuals to accompany this podcast in the episode guide. And what else, Drew?
Well, I want to encourage everybody to follow us on Instagram and Twitter. That's the first place if there's some late breaking news, or we've been throwing a lot of Top Gun Maverick stuff up there, as well as, the premiere's gone on. There's been new things. The Lady Gaga song, obviously, we've been listening to it every day, 10 times a day.
Yeah.
So if you want to be on the front lines of Light the Fuse, check that out at LightTheFuse-Pod on Instagram and Twitter. And I also want to just encourage everybody to like, subscribe, rate, and review wherever you're listening to this podcast, and just tell people about it. There's a lot of people that love Mission Impossible, and they're not the most vocal people. So if you overhear someone talking about it, something, oh, hey, listen to this podcast. It's great.
Yeah.
We've spent 4 years on this thing. We're just exhausted. And we need people to listen to it. So,
I think people should spray paint like advertising on the side of their car.
Oh, okay.
Just drive around and just with spray painted on their windows, listen to Light the Fuse, the greatest podcast you'll ever hear. You can fit all that with spray paint, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say you need a lot. You need like a real big car for that. But
yeah. Okay. So
I like
maybe
the sentiment.
Upgrade to a minivan or something, and then spray paint on the walls there. Do we want to tell people what next week is? I will say next week definitely is Light the Fuselage.
Is it? Okay.
It is the release date of Top Gun Maverick is next week, and we will have an episode for it. Do we want to tell people who we're talking to?
Yes.
Do you want to announce it?
I'll announce it. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Just lay it on them.
We're talking to Joseph Kosinski, the super genius director of Top Gun Maverick, Oblivion, Tron Legacy, and Only the Brave. And he was great.
Woo!
Yes. Charles is pumped. He was great. He's a very serious fellow, and he took our bullshit in stride, and we really have to thank him for that.
He took our questions very seriously. I got to ask him about Tom Cruise's hair, and he gave me a 100% serious answer.
And yet, not only did he give you a serious answer, he gave you the best possible answer you could have ever asked for with that question.
Yes, it was great.
I don't want to ruin it, but it is a magical response. I will say that.
You got to come back. Joseph Kosinski, director of Top Gun Maverick. We're lighting the fucking fuselage. You got to come back.
It was really interesting to hear about the development of it as well. Not to give anything away, but he was obviously not the first director on this, and we are obviously obsessed with what each filmmaker brings to the Mission Impossible entries, and it was very interesting to hear what his kind of tenets were going into Maverick.
Yeah.
And that's all I'll say, but it is fascinating. We will talk about it. I'm sure we will probably record several more episodes about Top Gun, so please come back. But yeah, he was great. We really thank him and Paramount for the time, because it was a really wonderful chat.
Yeah, it's awesome. Can't wait for you to hear it.
All right. Well, with that, let's go to the danger zone, Charles. Until next week.
Thanks again for listening, everyone. And before we go, another mission, should you choose to accept it, please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And remember that you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at LightTheFusePod, and and email us questions or comments at lightthefusepodcast@gmail.com. This message will self-destruct in 5 seconds.